Hi there, welcome back to 19 Considerations. We're going to pick up today where we left off, looking at this timeline, if you like, of the development of medicine in light of the current coronavirus, COVID-19 disease outbreak. So, briefly recapping, we looked initially at the archetypal pattern, which is the god of medicine, Asclepius, and his daughters, two of his daughters, Panacea or Panacea, and Hygeia. And we looked historically how the Western medical model had very much followed down this Panacea route, increasingly so, and the balance between the Panacea, the one-shot wonder, the cure-all, and Hygeia, which represents investment in long-term health, physical, mental, hygiene, that sort of thing. And because the imbalance between those two viewpoints has led us to a place where the threat of a new virus, the modern medical establishment is unable to meet and cope with that, because it's not something that it's focused on before, and it remains focused on single germ, single response, this germ theory of illness, whereas Hygeia may be more aligned with the terrain theory of illness, which is that the body's physiology and innate immunity are ultimately the only line of defence, and the investment could be placed more in the development and the maintenance of that. And so we looked briefly how this Western medical model has taken us to a point where we have a population, many of whom are what is known as vertically ill, and their health is being propped up on multiple fronts with medications and so on and so forth, but actually the robustness of the underlying immune system is not there. And so what I wanted to look at today was just seeing how this is somehow, in one way, one little corner of the news story and the information that's getting out there, how that's playing out. And it's very, very interesting, because really what you're seeing is this medical model, this concept of medical imperialism, and the control of the medical debate, the control of the information space and the outworking space is being clung onto. But I think we're seeing some cracks in that system, and ultimately what I hope it resolves to is a rebalancing of these approaches, whereby physiology and long-term health aren't undermined undermined to the detriment of general well-being, with this idea that we can always find the cure. So what I wanted to look at really was something that popped up in the news a couple of weeks ago, which is the role of vitamin C therapy in COVID-19 illness, and how that's played out in the media, and then is there any evidence that actually this might help? So it really kicked off this article here, New York hospitals treating coronavirus patients with vitamin C. This is March 24th, 2020, and it was in the New York Post. And it reported on a clinician, a hospital there, spokesman for Northwell, which operates 23 hospitals, including Lenox Hill Hospital on Manhattan's Upper East Side, said vitamin C was being widely used as a coronavirus treatment throughout the system. And there were reports of it having a good effect. So this sort of percolated through the media for a few days, and then within a week there was a generalised response, which was in an attempt to control this kind of information space, and for this medical system to maintain its control over its populace, if you like, which is essentially trying to debunk the whole thing. And so there was a raft of rebuttals coming through mainstream media after this was posted. This is typical of those. So there's a spokesperson for the British Dietetic Association, which is a dietitian is aligned in the conventional medical model as opposed to a nutritionist, let's say. So the quote is from Claire Fudge, a British dietitian, Dietetic Association spokesperson, that there's no known evidence, to my knowledge, that taking excessive, whatever that means, amounts of vitamin C may anyway, by supplementation, will prevent coronavirus. Claire Fudge told PBN there is no evidence currently available to support this theory, although trials are currently being undertaken. So this is interesting. As opposed, there's an opportunity for people to go out there and maybe regain some of the control of their own health and well-being through something simple like ascorbic acid supplementation, vitamin C supplementation, which has been used for at least a century. It has good clinical results in a number of different sort of healthcare scenarios. It's been used widely. It's very, very safe, but of course it's not licensed, so on and so forth. So there's a journal pre-proof here, which is going to go into medicine in drug discovery. Pre-proof was revised 23rd of March 2020, and the author is R.Z. Cheng, and the paper is Can Early and High Intravenous Dose of Vitamin C Prevent and Treat Coronavirus Disease 2019. Okay. And so it says acute respiratory distress syndrome, ARDS, is a key factor of fatality. Significantly increased oxidative stress due to the rapid release of free radicals and cytokines is a hallmark of ARDS, which leads to cellular injury, organ failure and death. So part of the body's response to intoxication with the coronavirus is this upregulation of the immune response. But that has side effects. People may have heard of these cytokine storms, and so one of the side effects of that is an over-expression and damage actually due to the body's own immune system. It says here, early and large doses of antioxidants such as vitamin C may become effective treatment for these patients. Clinical studies also show that high-dose oral vitamin C provides certain protection against viral infection. So there we see there are clinical studies already which show that oral vitamin C helps with the oxidative stress of the disease process and certain protection against viral infection. So immediately you see that the fudging by Claire Fudge of the fact that there's no evidence is, that statement is unsubstantiated. Neither intravenous nor oral administration of high-dose vitamin C is associated with significant side effects. Therefore, this regimen should be included in the treatment of COVID-19 and used as a preventative measure for susceptible populations such as healthcare workers with higher exposure risks. And it goes through to list a number of different studies. Hamila and colleagues reported that various high-dose vitamin C infusions shortened the intensive care unit stay by 97.8%, accompanied by a significant reduction in the mortality rate. Such an experience was reproduced among patients ill with severe influenza. Indeed, dietary antioxidants, vitamin C and sulforaphane, were shown to decrease oxidative stress-induced acute inflammatory lung injury in patients receiving mechanical ventilation, which is exactly what high dependency and patients are requiring that. In addition, oral vitamin C was able to reduce viral infection risk or improve symptoms. High-dose intravenous vitamin C has been successfully used in the treatment of 50 moderate to severe COVID-19 patients in China. The doses vary between 2 and 10 grams per day, given over a period of 8 to 10 hours. Additional vitamin C bolus may be required among patients in critical conditions. The oxygenation index was improving in real time, and all the patients eventually cured were discharged. In fact, high-dose vitamin C has been clinically used for several decades, and a recent National Institutes of Health expert panel document states clearly that this regimen, which is 1.5 grams per kilo of body weight, is safe and without major adverse effects. So there is good evidence that doses of vitamin C, and there is going to be a ratio, a body weight ratio, is effective not only in possibly preventing infection with coronavirus, but also dealing with the fallout from the disease process. And it's well known and well established that the method this occurs via is vitamin C upregulating and improving the production of and function of natural killer cells in the body. So the natural killer cells are part of the body's innate immune system, the non-specific immune system, and they're released in response to a number of things, including viral infection and also cancer cells. So just to sort of quote a couple more, this is from Vitamin C and Immune Function by Carr, and this is in the journal Nutrients. And we see here, furthermore, supplementation with vitamin C appears to be both able to prevent and treat respiratory and systemic infections. Prophylactic prevention of infection requires dietary vitamin C intakes that provide at least adequate, if not saturating, plasma levels. This maybe is what Ms. Fudge was calling excessive amounts, which is 100 to 200 milligrams a day, which optimize cell and tissue levels. In contrast, treatment of established infections requires significantly higher gram doses of the vitamin to compensate for the increased inflammatory response and metabolic demand. So there again we see the vitamin C is key in the prevention of illness and also dealing with the immune repercussions of illness. This is from Hauser, and this is in Immunotoxicology from 1997. It says, we conclude that immune functional abnormalities can be restored after toxic chemical exposure by oral usage of vitamin C. This is a paper which appears in Cytotherapy, March 2015. Ascorbic acid promotes proliferation of natural killer cell populations in culture systems applicable for natural killer cell therapy. So in these studies, they're looking at growing natural killer cells in a substrate, and the addition of ascorbic acid, vitamin C, increased the proliferation of the natural killer cells in these tests. Addition of ascorbic acid resulted in more proliferation of natural killer cells without influencing natural killer cell functionality, i.e. it didn't deplete functionality. In more detail, PBMC-derived natural killer cells expanded 2,362-fold in the presence of ascorbic acid and were capable of killing tumour cells under normoxia and hypoxia, which is important to remember. Hypoxia is low oxygen levels, which is precisely the situation that people with COVID-19 find themselves in. Moreover, hematopoietic stem cell derived progenitors appeared to mature faster in the presence of ascorbic acid, which was also observed in the natural killer cell differentiation, so on and so forth. So we're looking at an increase and a more rapid maturation of an aspect of the immune system, contrary to the British Dietetic Association, which said there is no evidence that it can boost the immune system. And there's a whole bunch of citations here. Influence of vitamin C on lymphocytes, an overview. Ascorbic acid serum levels are reduced in patients with hematological malignancies. This is from Vitamin C and immune cell function in inflammation and cancer. High ascorbic acid supplementation for 1 year also significantly increased all circulating leukocytes, including lymphocytes. So that's white blood cells. The effect of vitamin C in the treatment of patients with cancer, a systematic review states, additionally, we showed in preclinical studies that vitamin C has an important role in the immune system as it stimulates the production and or activation of immune cells. And so it goes on. I think the important thing to take home here is, well, first of all, you've got to think for yourself. Secondly, you've got to ask the question, why would the use of something as simple and as unlicensed and as cheap as vitamin C garner such a backlash from the orthodox medical community? I think the time for, put it this way, if you know in principle something has the ability to upregulate immune function and buffer oxidative stress based upon or resulting from immune system activation, and you know that it works in influenza, and then you know that it works with various cancer forms and so on and so forth, then it is reasonable to say this is potentially a viable treatment in this situation. How the immune system is acting in a certain way, particularly the non-specific immune system, is going to act in a blanket way, regardless, let's say, of the noxa, of the toxin, of the virus, or whatever else is coming in. The reaction is roughly the same, and hence supporting factors will therefore support in all cases. And to say, well, there's no evidence yet to say that it works in COVID-19 is let's say, a little disingenuous, because we know if we know something in principle works in multiple cases, and in an emergency situation such as this, I think we can reasonably take that information and say, well, it may well apply here, and studies can be built and modified along the way, particularly with something like vitamin C, with little to no adverse effects within a human being, rather than just saying, well, we need to now conduct a study with this very specific germ. So here, once again, we have this dichotomy, this balance or imbalance between these two approaches towards healthcare. On the one side, you have this panacea, compartmentalised, germ-based theory, this very rigid side. On the other side, you have Hygeia, the terrain theory, and understanding in principle what is involved physiologically within the human organism. So I think the situation requires a rebalancing, a bringing up this Hygeia way of thinking about things, thinking about the terrain, this flexibility of thought, the ability to take something that we understand in principle and apply it to multiple situations, as opposed to this rigid, compartmentalised way of looking at everything, this single germ response. This study must be required on this germ here. I don't think there's time for that at the moment. I think we've got very good therapeutic interventions which have proven across multiple disease states that we can apply in this situation. But at the moment, the official narrative of what's coming out, and this harks back really to this idea of medical imperialism and the control of the thought patterns and the control of the information space, is to discount that currently. My prediction, I think that this vitamin C intervention will be taken up more and more across the board. There's anecdotal evidence that the Chinese have been doing more than this one group in Wuhan. There are reports that I've seen, which I can't verify, but suggest that the Chinese are aware that this approach works. And there's also some evidence that I've seen referenced that the biolab in Wuhan, prior to the admission of the outbreak from that area, was working with studying vitamin C levels in bat and horseshoe bat feces in response to viral load. So I think over time, more and more evidence is going to come out about the link and the positive benefits of vitamin C. So although at the moment the control medical imperialism route is to try and desperately cling on to control of the entire situation, control of the narrative, control of the cure, keeping people locked into the way they're thinking, whilst this Hail Mary hope for a coronavirus vaccine, when historically there aren't successful coronavirus vaccines out there. The SARS vaccine project really failed, and for years and years there's been this constant search for the cure for the common cold being another one of these coronavirus family. So yeah, my prediction is that this is going to be taken up more and more, I think quietly at first, and also the cynic in me would say watch for the attempt to control and take credit for the idea again by the medical establishment via their mouthpieces in the media, I think you'll see that all of a sudden there'll be thankful success based upon vitamin C intervention, which will then be co-opted as the idea of the medical community, as opposed to maybe something that's been understood in principle and utilized by people in their own rights for a long period of time. So on a personal level, I think that the argument for vitamin C is good, and hence it is something that I'm including in my daily routine, as it were. I make my own liposomal vitamin C, which has a much better absorption rate with no gut irritation, which may be experienced in people who are sensitive to unbuffered vitamin C, ascorbic acid. So I produce my own liposomal vitamin C, which is a very easy process to do with a little bit of equipment and a little bit of know-how. And I've upped to my daily dosage of that, in the understanding that my innate immune system creates natural killer cells to fight viral infection. So why would I not want to maximize the level of those cells in my body? Obviously I would, and that's why I'm doing it. So anyway, I hope you found this useful, interesting, and as always, I'll be delighted if you leave a comment below, like, subscribe even, and pass it on to somebody you might think who would be interested, and I'll see you later on. All right, take care.